All right, you bunch of heathens. Welcome into the Jacked Ramsays live show. Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague. What's going on, everybody? Obviously, it's not going to be like a real chipper mood with the news around Nasir Little. We'll get kind of everybody in here in just a second. And while we're waiting for a second, I will pull up what I use to make everything for all of the templates, because everybody wants to know the name of that song, and I've got it in my uploads in there. Sort by audio. I know the name of the artist as soon as I see it. So if anybody wants to find it, it's called Neverland by Sunny Fruit. There you go.
Okay.
And you can find it on YouTube. I have the licensing rights for it. That's why it never gets ripped out, and I don't ever have my content taken down, because I spent money on music. So there you go. Support artists.
Fun fact. Yes, one, support artists. Two, fun fact. My second year working at 1080 The Fan, we did and this will kind of date the situation, by the way. We're talking a decade ago. We created as a night show a hot chick bracket. So like, who's the hottest actress out there, right? We did this for a lot of different topics, but we did the hot chick one. I used a Google image of a Mila Kunis, and we put it on the website, let people vote. The photographer of that photo somehow found it and sued our company for $50,000.
That tracks. Yeah, no, people do that for, like, all you gotta do is do a Google image search.
Yeah, and I guess if you don't cite credit or you don't get permission, it was illegal back then. And this was like right before suing just like grew and grew and grew. But he sued for 50 grand, ended up getting 30. That meeting was not fun to talk to my boss, because I was basically a minimum wage worker going, what? I just cost the company $30,000
by one copy paste.
One copy paste. It was that simple.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about all the stuff that I use, is that number one, I pay for it. Number two, I have the rights for in perpetuity, so I don't ever get caught with that that disaster piece. Speaking of disaster pieces, let's go ahead and let's pull up the news. I hate this. I really hate this. This sucks beyond belief, man. Obviously, Nas was out the other night, being held out because of what was assumed to be a shoulder injury. But it was not known until, I believe, last night, the severity of it. And the actual press release from the Blazers says an MRI taken January 26th revealed, let me just double check that real quick. So again, today's the 27th. I mean, last night was the 26th. An MRI taken January 26th revealed Trailblazers forward Nasir Little with a left shoulder labral tear. The team announced today the injury occurred with 8-11 remaining in the fourth quarter of Portland's game against Minnesota on January 25th. An update on his stats provided as available. What's interesting about this, Brandon, is there is not yet a surgery date. However, it's a labral tear. That I have never seen a labral tear that did not require surgery in sports.
So this was obviously the big bummer of the day. There's no doubting that. But and yeah, first and foremost, we hope that Nas can just get healthy and be ready to go by next year, because Woj also comes out and says he's done for the season. Aside from the bummer stuff, I don't know why. I didn't say this last night on the post game. I had a weird feeling about that situation. You've mentioned this several times, right? It's very Portland to say, well, it's some inflammation. Well, he's being held out for precaution, and then like boom, big injury. Remember his reaction when that injury happened? We were
watching that live, and we both did the same thing. Like, he doesn't. For those that don't know, Nas is a tough dude, and everybody says the same thing. Like, that's why everybody huddled around him. Like, he's not a guy that he plays through a ton. Like, he has had nicks and knocks and all kinds of stuff. So for him to hit the ground the way that he did and stay down, Brandon, it was a pretty telling sign.
Well, I remember watching that live with you, and we didn't even see him. He went for the rebound. It went to the other side of the court, and the reaction from the bench, the Blazer players all got up the way they did with Nurkic. And I didn't see what happened. So my instincts were just like, oh my God, is this a leg injury? And they go over, he's holding his shoulder. I mean, that's the moment he tears it, right? He feels that tear. He's like, oh, and he ended up getting up and walking off and
He
not
came
kinda
back
slouching. He did come back out. He Klay Thompson that bitch.
The original thought was, and Andrew says, I mean, Chauncey said nothing serious originally. That's because Chauncey's a former player. And his guy went out there. And this is not a knock on the medical staff. The medical staff took this seriously, and that's why he didn't play the next night. My understanding is in something like this, you go back in the back and you go through your range of motion. It's sore, but you pass a test, and you can go back out there. Now, depending on the severity of it, clearly the shoulder wasn't dislocated. Like with Zach Collins, we knew.
Yeah.
We knew like his shit was down.
When
here.
you have slouchy, when you're doing this.
when the rubber arm's there, that nope. But this was deeper, but that kind of matches up with what the reaction was.
Yeah.
But it's a bummer. It's a major, major, major bummer. MRI shows again a torn labrum on left shoulder for Nassir Little, who was having a tremendous season. And it's... I don't want to recount all the stuff he's been through because he's been through a lot. Because
I think you should. Like, for listeners out there that maybe
don't know
how much, you know what I mean? Like, to kind of put this in proper perspective of what in a very short stint he's had to endure. I think it'd be good if you did.
So he's had a couple knee injuries, and obviously nothing serious that required surgery. He's had a couple ankle injuries that have kind of piled up on him that have held him back. I believe it was a hamstring or a calf before that, and then he had another leg issue coming into camp, and before that, he obviously had COVID, where he lost 30 pounds and had to reshape his body. And before COVID, he had an issue in the bubble where he blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to the point of, I don't think he'll care if I share this, that Anfernee Simons was so scared that he cried because his guy's down on the ground out cold.
Yep.
Like, scary situation. And then after that, they were worried about a potential heart issue. Same kind of thing with, like, LaMarcus. Like, where you were like, the symptoms all kind of tracked, like, ooh, this is not good. So he, and that's just the medical stuff. That doesn't even begin to touch on, like, the basketball side of things, where he goes to North Carolina and he's put in an awkward position. He's the number 5 prospect in the country. He falls in the lottery. It wasn't just him that got COVID. He had family members who got COVID. Like, he's been in the league technically. This is his 3rd season, but he was drafted going into the COVID year. So he's only actually been playing basketball in the NBA for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And it has just been one thing after another, after another, after another. And this is just another hurdle that he has to overcome. And to be honest, like, he's the kind of guy you got to pull his corpse up off the floor. But unfortunately, he's just running into things. And I hope this is the last thing that he has to deal with. Like, and I say all this to say, because I've seen people say, well, he's injury prone. I don't know if he's injury prone. Because
I don't think that's fair yet. That's not fair yet.
Like, I hate to say this, I look at Zach Collins and I say injury prone because it's the same injuries. Ankle and shoulder. Nas has had just stupid knocks up and down his body. Could he be down the road? Sure. Maybe he's this is going to sound kind of weird, but he may have too much power for his frame. Mm-hmm. That does happen to guys when you're just too damn strong and you're too damn wound that you can biomechanically, you can be lean more towards injury. D.
Rose had this with his athleticism.
Yes.
He was
too explosive, literally pulled away from the bone.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I am not to the point of injury prone. The problem with the labral tear is shoulders are wonky, and typically once you repair it once, it definitely leaves you open to further injury. Like with knees, this coming from the guy who's had multiple knee surgeries. With knees, typically once you get it, you're good. Like that's especially nowadays, ACL, MCL, meniscus, that kind of thing. Unless you're a 7-footer, hell, sometimes you come back even better.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. As long as you aren't like blowing up your knee a la Derrick Rose.
I mean, I did an interview today with a doctor who just wrote a book about injury recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked about Cam Akers, the running back for the Rams.
What, 5 months on an Achilles?
6. He tore his Achilles in camp. And everyone's like, well, Cam Akers is done. See you next year, like week 7.
Yeah.
And the dude is playing now. And I know he didn't have a good playoff game, but like he's starting for the Rams as their running back. And so it's remarkable because when Kevin Durant went down, we were like, is this dude ever going to be the same again? Now, KD sat a year and he's been really effing good this year. Mm-hmm. Cam Akers, without the fumbles, I mean, just the fact that he's playing pro football is unreal.
That he's playing at that level is just bonkers.
So I asked the doctor, I said, is he just a freak? Or is this becoming the new normal? Where ACLs were a couple years ago. Remember, ACLs would happen.
Remember Adrian Peterson? Was it 4 months?
And he was the first. That's when it started.
That was like, AP's a monster. Yeah.
Right. But then other guys would tear their ACLs, and most of them missed the season, but like they'd be back and they'd be normal. It didn't like take you away from
You're not getting that year-long linger. Because like I had mine, my first one was 20 years ago. I was 17.
Yeah.
It was 14 months.
Yep. That was the normal timeline of that injury.
Before I was like, it was a whole ass year before I was like, okay, I can feel it. Now you're cutting 10 months. You're cutting a whole year damn near off that.
And the doctor didn't say like, you get it, everybody's going to be back in 4 months. But what he did say is a guy like Cam Akers, what they're finding is they can take your own cells and they rejuvenate it back into your area where you got injured, the Achilles in this example. And it's rejuvenating guys a
Stem
lot
cell, PRP,
faster. Yes, and it's your own stuff. So, the shoulder thing sucks. It really does. I was bummed for him. He's averaging 13 and 7. He's shooting 40% from 3 in January, which is like a dream.
Yeah.
It blows for him. But I think I was a little encouraged today talking to a doctor who's like, hey, the Achilles injury is bad, but it's no longer what we thought it was because we have all of these options now. And
the same thing with shoulders. And the problem is because it's as crazy as it sounds, the Achilles, as much as it's a load-bearing injury, with shoulders, it's a range of motion injury. And the good news is it is his non-shooting shoulder. So you have at least that going for you. This isn't like a pitcher with Tommy John where you're wondering about that same arm. This isn't, again, an Achilles where you're worried about Nas is going to lose his explosiveness. As far as a severe injury goes, this is about probably the best scenario, a non-shooting, non-lower body injury, which, again, John says, asks any notable NBA players who have had similar injuries and recovered from them. Yeah, there's been a bunch. God, I had it up earlier.
Siakam's one of them.
Siakam's one of them. He was 5 months, yes. And I believe that was also a non-shooting shoulder.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious, like, I forgot what year he had that injury, but how he has looked
2 years ago.
How he's looked post that injury, because he had a few lows there for a while where he wasn't playing very well. I'm not saying that's the injury. I'm kind of curious about it, and it sucks to lose him. But if you're looking at the timeline of this stuff, if it happens now, you don't want it to happen at all. But if it happens now, at least like he's for sure going to be back in the summer working out, rehabbing, and by the start of next season, he should be ready. He
should be 100% go.
Yeah.
And for everybody asking, 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
4 to 6 months. That's realistically what we're looking at. And I don't want them to rush him back. The frustrating part of this is for Nasir and his family and his friends and his people around him is that Joe Cronin is now in charge, and the Blazers have not extended anybody since CJ McCollum. He may have been able to, if he was healthy the rest of the season, justify an extension that made sense for both the team and Nasir and his camp. Mm-hmm. Now he doesn't get that opportunity. Now what does that do? What does that change for him going forward? Does that turn into a have to bet on yourself situation, which I'm not entirely against because I think he'll do just fine in that regard. But what if he did basically go 14 and 7 between January and April and put up real numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. Anfernee Simons is getting $20+ million. based on what he has done this month alone.
Right.
Do you think maybe Nasir could have gotten 10 to 12 locked in?
Yeah, probably. That seems fair for what he is. You're betting on some future stuff too. Like that's kind of the contract you'd sign. Mm-hmm. And then 2 years into that contract, you've proven it. So you're probably going to up that a little bit. Like, yeah, that seems pretty fair.
But now instead, do they kind of waffle around that? I think that's got to be a frustrating part of this is the unknown. And, we've seen this particularly this year with Anfernee Simons. He was buried behind Dame, CJ, and Norm.
Yep.
And, there's probably a worry in the back of his head, Brandon, of, am I going to get the opportunity to show that I'm worth that money?
Right.
And it took a bunch of injuries and the season going sideways for that to happen.
It's just really kind of the theme of the season, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of what sucks.
Big bummer.
We'll stay on the Nas stuff here for a second, as it pertains to the team and what's going to happen. So, first things first, I heard the other day that the organization, again, we talked about this in the postgame show, Brandon, that the organization was not committed either way to a tank or chasing a play-in. They were just kind of like, well, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That was the day before Nas got hurt. And obviously they knew last night. So we're talking about 48 hours. I have a hard time believing that they've had a chance to really sit down and go through this. What does this injury mean for this season?
I think we know what it means. Do you need to go through it? Like, you're making trades. You're probably trading, or we assume you're trading for guys who are not playing, may not play the rest of the year.
You might need an extra body now, though, just to fill out the active, healthy bodies.
Sure. Go get a two-way guy from a G League team. Like, I think
you're full tank now, right?
I'm not just full tank. I don't even think tanking is the right term anymore. Like, not to make light of an injury or anything, because all due respect, like I really am bummed for Nas. I was enjoying watching him kind of grow and seeing his good games and seeing him kind of bounce back from some games that weren't as great. If we're just talking about the team now, the trajectory, you go get a dude nobody's heard of. We all have to do a Google search, and you take the airplane and you crash it into the mountain. Like, it's not even a tank of just like, boom, boom. It's like,
what was the movie? Was it Alive?
Oh yeah, when he goes
the soccer
in the mountain.
Team. Yeah. We don't need to go full cannibal, but like,
we're not going there.
That's like what Orlando has done. They're full cannibal right now. They are eating each other alive. I don't want to get like too off track, but this is the great thing about the live show. I was talking to somebody in the league today, and we were talking about how, particularly how Portland and a couple other teams are still very stupid in how they handle injury reporting, and how it's just like, why? Why are some teams so ridiculous about this?
Yeah.
And I was like, Portland's pretty bad. I'm like, I don't know if they're the worst. And he was like, they're not the worst. And I'm like, I had to think, and I was like, who's worse than Portland? Like, legitimately worse than Portland? I've heard of a few teams that obviously aren't great, but he stopped me in my tracks. He goes, Orlando. And I'm like, yeah, they're out there. Nobody cares. And I'm like, I started thinking about it. I'm like,
I say that's the problem. I never know, because I'm never really like,
yeah. And I was like,
hiding an injury.
When was the last time we got an official update on Jonathan Isaac, who blew out his knee 18 months ago? He goes, they haven't had one. And I was like,
it's very reminiscent of Zach and his foot, wasn't it?
Yes, but
Zach sometime he's tracking to come back at this time.
Well, that one we kind of we knew what was going on. I've heard that Isaac is actually could play right now.
So what's that about? Trading him?
No. Well, yes, but also ping pong balls.
I mean, is Jonathan Isaac going to change how shit that team is? That team is
not now, which is why I think they'd move him.
Yeah.
And the same thing, Markelle Fultz tore his ACL a year ago.
Haven't heard a word on
Not
Fultz.
a peep. And I'm like, the hell is going on? Like a black hole. So they aren't the worst in the NBA.
But they're in the bottom tier, and look, teams can operate how they choose to operate. That's fine.
I'm still going to call you stupid for doing it, but yes.
Yeah, we're allowed to also give an opinion on that, and it's just dumb. Like, you're playing this like you're the Oregon Ducks, and nobody's allowed to know, and no injuries are released
shut down
all
practice
week.
Nonsense with Chip.
It really is. It reminds me of some college football bowl, And it's like, cool. I don't know why you think you benefit from downplaying or just kind of keeping back injury information. But you know what? That's their priorities. That's what they want to do. So be it. I don't really understand it.
Yeah. You know what my pushback to that kind of stuff has always been? I'm going to go full homer here. USC was the best team in the country for 5 years, and our practices, and yes, I'm using a collective pronoun, our practices were wide the fuck open.
Celebrities were there running
Everybody was there.
It was a party.
It's exactly it. Nobody gave a shit. They were so good, they said, come film us. We don't give a shit. So every time I hear that, like, oh, and I'm like, you're not doing anything secret. Stop it. Stop it. You're not, like, just don't give me that. That's always been my biggest pushback to all of this stuff is, like, I've seen firsthand a top flight organization at the peak of its powers having more transparency than anybody. So, well, I shouldn't say transparency because they were sliding bags of cash to Reggie Bush onto the table, but I digress.
Hey, no longer do they have to slide those under a table.
No, now we can slide them across the table. And they've got really big ones. Overall, the Nassir stuff sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks something hard. I get really frustrated by it because, you know, I love seeing the young guys succeed, and I love seeing them get on the floor. For those wondering, yes, I had Nassir obviously booked to do some work with. That is on hold.
Yes, so, I think that's going to be...
For those wondering, I reached out to his agent today just to make sure, you know, hey, if, you know, we can reschedule, it's cool. So that will be on hold, but I may have some updates on that. Overall, we've kind of got into it a little bit. The tank or not to tank situation, you're wanting to fly this thing into a cliff at this point.
I want this to be as bad as you can possibly make it at this point. There is no reason to be sitting here and acting as if this team is ever going to be in a different spot than what they currently are. They're 8 games below 500 right now. They've got a 4-game road trip coming up. You know, CJ still on this team, Nurkic still on the team, Ant playing. Like, this team can still win some of these games on this road trip. When they make those trades, they need to embrace this. You allow Ant to go out there and play basketball. And I want it to be so bad that I'm kind of hoping he plays with dudes he doesn't even know. Where he's like, wait, I'd never heard of this guy before tonight. I had to look him up. Looks like he played at Missouri Southern State.
Yeah, I wanted to have multiple directions in their college.
Yes, I'm looking for that too. I want it to sound like a made-up college. Like, that's my primary goal here.
You better sound like you're out of a Key and Peele sketch.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
That's the direction you got to go. You've already lost some ground because you went on that, you know, winning 6-10 or whatever it was. Get back in this thing. Accept this season for what it is. It's a crap sandwich. Sometimes you got to eat a crap sandwich to get a better meal. And I think they're there. So you need to take this plane and you need to turn it towards that mountain and you need to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a secret that I was already headed that way, but now I'm very fully like, let's not tempt the basketball gods any more than has been tempted. I always go back to Terry Stotts, the infamous 2017 Kings game where Ant went nuts. Somebody asked him, it might have been Richmond, I can't remember, it might have been Joe Freeman, but about, like, you know, what you may or may not do in that game, and Terry said, you don't fuck with the game. And then they did.
Yeah.
It worked out pretty well for them.
And then they denied that they were doing it, but everybody knew what they were doing.
I mean, Dave Yeager just threw 2 birds up to the Kings in his last hurrah and was like, oh, no, I'm going to sit anybody who matters, and now I'm just going to screw with the playoff picture. Cool. So the Blazers have done this before as far as messing with the game. I could see them doing it again. But I think that's kind of the tank part of this. And so I just want to welcome everybody in real quick. I haven't done that yet. Welcome in. We appreciate you. We love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Saw you, James Huntley, subscribe. Appreciate you. If you're watching here live, please click the subscribe button. Help us get to 2,500. We are on our way. up, and that is all because of you guys. Thank you all so very much. I had a huge, awesome, productive meeting with Playback. We're going to continue running watch parties every single game for the rest of the season. I've got more coming with them. I took all of your suggestions and gave that to them. Really excited about what they could be putting in, which is a ability for me to grab clips during games and be able to throw them back up during commercials and stuff like that and go, hey, here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're watching for. They're a very, very, very cool product, and I'm really stoked to see what they're going to do here in the next month or two. So thank you all for that. Thank you all for the members that have come in there. Now, if you want to be a part of that, all you got to do is subscribe or I should say become a member, and then you can hop in or catch the links for the watch parties. We will have some member-exclusive chats and content and stuff like that. That's all going to be rolled out here in the next probably month or so. So thank you. Appreciate you.
We love you. We love you very much.
There was a couple questions in here. First of all, Joey says, give Reggie Bush his Heisman back. Damn right.
Apps. You know, I said that one time on Twitter, and somebody said I have awful moral character, and then proceeded to tell me my radio show sucked. It was just the most random tweet I've ever seen in my life.
Was he the best college football player in the country? Yes.
Yes.
Shut up and give him his trophy back. Whether or not he drove an Escalade and took $5,000 for his mom's house does not impact that.
Guess what? I don't care if they gave him and his parents a house in San Diego and a free car. He fucking deserved it. They weren't wearing number 5 at the Coliseum for anybody else. That was Reggie Bush.
Yeah, I was saying, that framed Reggie Bush jersey that's going to be up in the back of the studio isn't a USC number 5. It is a Reggie Bush jersey.
Well, I might be wrong on this. I guess I might not know all the rules to the NIL stuff, but you wait till colleges, if they can, you wait, because I think we're pretty close to getting these players for the teams that do names on the back. You wait for them to start selling those jerseys.
Oh, 100% they will.
That is an in. If I'm Oregon, I'm Washington, I'm one of these Pac-12. I'm like, hey, you're getting a uniform, and we're selling the uniform, and you're getting proceeds from that.
I wouldn't be surprised if USC threw names on the back of jerseys
just to sell them so they can pay kids.
Same with all of the big traditional schools. They're like, oh, you play for the no. No, you play for the money now. So we'll get into some trade stuff here. Joey says Mike Richmond said in his pod there's interest from Detroit for Powell. Yeah, I've heard the same. We've talked about that before. Detroit is one of the teams, along with New Orleans, New York, Dallas. I think Miami had cursory interest, and a couple others. There was about a dozen teams that were loosely or remotely in the running for Norman Powell as a free agent. CJ, from what I've heard, and I checked about 2 hours ago, following up on Jake Fisher's stuff that he put out earlier today, that again, CJ is a priority. It's getting there is more and more smoke in New Orleans. I would imagine that if CJ is dealt, that is where he goes. That is
it feels that way right now.
Yeah. Jake alluded to this a little bit where he was like, yeah, sure, they could use, Hart and Jonas, but I asked around. Jonas is not on the menu.
That's too bad. It would have been, I saw that earlier, and I'm like, Josh Hart and Jonas Valanciunas?
Listen, CJ for Hart and Jonas with no picks, I'm like.
That would be unreal. Take it, please.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. I'm good with that.
That'd be better value than I thought he was going to give back.
Starting small forward and starting center. Cool. That means you have Norm, Cove, and Nurk to be able to just go do whatever you wanted to go do with, fill out accordingly. Your starting lineup next year is Dame, Ant, Hart, insert power forward here, and Jonas.
Let's get a little wild real quick. Let's get reckless and wild.
I like reckless. Let's go.
It's Jack Ramsey's reckless and wild time. I have no evidence if this is even real, but I happened to see earlier somebody said that Jordan Woods on her Instagram.
Oh, yes, with Karl Anthony Towns.
Talked about how Portland is a good vibe. And I thought, boy, it wouldn't. I've said this before. It's not going to shock me if a player that you would say is a star and is good randomly goes, I go play with Dame. It won't shock me if that happens. I don't know what it will take to get them. I don't know if those phone calls need to get fielded now so they don't trade away any assets they have. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, listen, I love that kind of stuff. I love the little peek behind the curtain. Oh, what's going on over here? John M. says, does Richmond have real sources? Yes, the guy that's a beat reporter for a decade has real sources.
Well, it's not just even this isn't like to take away Richmond's sources. It's just loud. Like the Hollinger stuff. Like there's a lot of people writing about Norman, Detroit. There's a lot of people saying CJ in New Orleans. It's loud right now.
It's never been loud in Portland over the last decade with Neil Olshey. That is what is so weird about this. And you and I, Brandon, we've talked about this. Like in the past, like I have decent sources in Orlando. That's why I knew then. I told you back then they were pursuing Aaron Gordon. I'm like, they're going after him. Like that was always something I had heard. There was a few other teams, they don't actively talk like the Boston Celtics where they're in every deal, in the Ainge days. But I always heard, Portland's kicking around here. And even this year, in free agency, when I was like, they're going for Zeller and Snell. Like, I heard just a little bit more than I had heard in the past. Now, it's deafening. Like, it's so much louder than it has ever been. And I don't know whether or not that's smoke for smoke's sake, or if there really are just kicking over a lot of rocks.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, And John M. says, Herb Jones. I need John and every other human being on this planet to get the idea of Herb Jones being included in the C.J. McCollum trade out of their head. Rookie scale, top flight perimeter defenders.
You're not getting Herb Jones.
Are not for sale for C.J. McCollum.
Nope.
I've seen a bunch of people like, they could include Herb Jones, and that makes sense. On what planet does a team that needs a perimeter defender in New Orleans make sense for them to give up a rookie scale top 5 point of attack defender for CJ McCollum?
It doesn't make any sense, but I think the one thing you could maybe hold a glimmer of hope on, even though I don't think it's happening, it is New Orleans, and they are a stupid franchise.
Yeah, and then Amin says, Powell for Herb Jones, get roughly a $20 million trade exemption. Again, the Portland Trailblazers and trade exemptions blow my brains out. The last thing I want is for the Portland Trailblazers to get another trade exception that they don't use.
You don't want a trade exception again. You don't get excited about the trade exception.
God, the Rafe LaFrence's expiring contract and the trade exceptions, the Allen Crabbe trade exception, like it's just, oh God.
Well,
give me real tangible things, either picks or players. I don't want anything else.
I'm pretty fond of cash considerations being involved as well. Nothing gets me more aroused from a sports angle.
It's one of those things where it's depending on ownership, you can definitely see it. The previous regime in Chicago, and while it's still run by the Reinsdorfs, that his son came in, you're seeing them not be nearly as cheap as they were.
Right.
Like in the past, they were cheap. Cheap. Just cheap birds everywhere. Is it Michael? I think Michael's his son. Obviously, they bring in AK. They bring in Eversley, and they spent a truckload of money. You're in Chicago.
Yep.
You have no reason to not just like, sure, we'll spend $150 million this year. You're Chicago. Shut up and spend money. It's a money printing machine. So, cash considerations, not thrown around nearly as often. I do miss the days of Paul Allen buying picks hand over fist, too. I was like, fun. I want that one, and I want that one, and I want that one. He used to walk in like, a billionaire walks into Nordstrom, oh, yeah, that and that and that and that. I'll take that. I don't care. I want that, and that's...
It's going to be blasphemous to say this, RIP to Paul, but I had a buddy that once said he thought Paul was more excited about the draft than winning a championship.
I don't think that's really that hot of a take. I think he loved the idea of building.
He did, yeah. I mean, he helped build a legendary company.
Yes, and I think that was really a part of you can get into that. James S., how do we pay to become members and attend watch parties? If you're on YouTube, click community, click join. Boop. Or if you're on YouTube and you're already subscribed, there should be a join button. Click it, boom, you're in.
$3, you won't even notice it.
Yeah. And somebody said somebody should do a free. You guys should do a free watch party. The plan is to do one a month, maybe two. Open it up, but that's when the watch party software, when playback goes public, because they're still in beta right now. Once they fully launch, then we will do that because the room sizes will increase.
Yeah,
and I don't want to keep any members out. That's why. John says, Norm for Grant straight up. I would imagine Norm's contract length would be appealing to them. Yes and no. Here's the thing. Dwayne Casey's the coach in Detroit. There's familiarity there. I don't think Norm for Grant straight up is happening. I don't.
So what would you have to include in that?
They want young players to go alongside Cade. So my thought process immediately goes to...
You're right, Ellaby.
Of course, CJ Ellaby. If Portland made a deal with New Orleans.
Get the young asset. So you'd basically probably make it a 3-teamer, wouldn't you, at that point?
I don't think Portland's going to do anything that ends up being a straight 1-for-1 trade.
Right.
Like, it may be a 1-to-1 team transaction that then turns into something else when they, officially file the paperwork. But I don't think that's going to be as straightforward as has been in the past. Remember Nick Stauskas getting passed around through like 7 different teams?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that like when it's all said and done, we'll have some transactions like that this year.
Nice.
So the transaction tree, for anybody wondering, I think for Portland, the domino to fall is CJ. It's either CJ or it's Covington, and these are the two different ways I see this happening. CJ for Hart, Hayes, Satoransky picks. You take and you flip that package essentially for Jeremy Grant. Maybe you keep Hart and you send Norm with.
I really hope they keep Hart. I'm just going to throw that out there now.
I think he's
athleticism,
I think it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But I'm not over here screaming and yelling if you don't.
Well, I'd be very curious what the move is if you don't, though. You know what I mean? Like, how else are you building the roster out?
Well, I mean, I think the idea would be Nas is your starting 3.
Sure, and that's fine.
And Hart's good depth, but
Josh Hart off the bench would be great.
And my whole point is with all these transactions, there may be somebody else along the way that they pick up. And that was why I threw that trade idea out there, because I had heard Cleveland kicking some things around Robert Covington. Chetty Osman can be your 3 off the bench. The other point of this is if Covington is moved to Sacramento for Marvin Bagley, that's another young player that I don't think Portland keeps. They would put into a package for a Jeremy Grant or a Miles Turner. And that's where I keep talking about these transaction wheels. Yusuf Nurkic going to Charlotte and PJ Washington coming back and how that kind of comes together. Deadly Contact came in here and says, do you guys like Herb Jones? He missed the beginning part of this.
Yeah, we really like Herb Jones, but it is not happening.
The Pelicans like him a lot more.
Great name, by the way, Herb Jones. Great name.
It is a great name. It
for
really
a young
is.
player, like that's such an old name, and he's such a young player.
It has like Deacon Jones connotations, like
yes,
Snapper Jones. Herb Jones definitely sounds like a guy who played for the Admirals in 1973.
Oh, Herb Jones is definitely a trading card you find in a Cracker Jack box. Like that is absolutely where you find a Herb Jones playing card.
There was another question in here also wondering about Miles. We were supposed to be very interested in him. I wonder what it would cost, though. It's going to be the package that's kind of been floated, which is the idea of a solid young player and a first-round pick. And that's why I don't believe Cove is going to get a first-round pick.
No.
I just, from what I have heard and what I've been told in discussions that have kind of gone back and forth, I don't see it happening.
Unless Utah's worried that Donovan is going to go to New York now and they want to build around Robert Covington, then we get multiple first-round picks.
Sure. It only takes one. It only takes one team. I've seen a lot of people say, well, they gave up 2 first-round picks for Cove. If I don't get back at least one, I'm letting him walk.
It was a bad deal. I mean, I think it's okay to say that now. It is what it is. You have to accept that. You have to move on, and you take what you get, whether that's draft capital at all or it's, a piece that you use to swing a different direction.
I think they'll get a young player in like 2 seconds back or a heavily protected first. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I've seen I like to explain it this way. Well, yeah, you gave up 2 first-round picks, but, well, Brandon, when you drive a new car off the lot 2 years later, what's it worth?
It's a depreciating asset, so you're instantly losing like 10 grand of value from that car. But you still want a car.
Sure. It is what it is. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay.
Unless you drive a 4Runner. 4Runners, for some reason, they almost make you money. Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Well, if you got a used car right now, you can make some money. That's for damn sure. So there's a question here. Eric Fendel says, what do you guys think about the fact that Jeremy Grant wants to be a number 2 option? He did not say number 2 option. He didn't say number 1 option. He wants to be featured prominently.
Yes.
That means he's not being parked in a corner. He wants to be able to handle the ball.
Yep.
Okay. I think you could figure that out. Diddley Content asked about John Collins. I don't think the Blazers have the pieces to make that happen.
That would be a big trade. Huge trade.
If it happened, like if all of the Blazers did was basically find a replacement level center for Yusuf Nurkic, get John Collins and flip CJ for that package, and they ran like Dame, Ant, Josh Hart, John Collins, and replacement level center, or they figured some stuff out in the offseason, I'm like, that's a good trade deadline.
Yeah, that'd be a damn nice trade deadline.
Because now you've got Ant and John Collins as your pieces kind of going forward.
Just in case something else happens.
Just in case. And
it's a little insurance, right?
That's a good place to be.
Well, it's unfortunate, too. They don't have the pieces to trade for John Collins because they should have just drafted him.
Exactly. And I've seen a bunch of people ask about Jackson Hayes, obviously with his legal issues.
That is a weird story, by the way.
It is a weird story.
Very weird story.
And I mean, there probably has a tinge of awfulness on the back end to that.
Yeah, well, the video bothered me. I mean, just the video being leaked, it was like, oh, I can't watch this.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, no, not great.
But if Jackson Hayes is being put into a deal, the due diligence has been done, folks. Like, it is what it is. I don't think that Portland keeps Hayes in any way anyways. And so the team that he's getting sent to has done due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, that might be complicating matters. That may be why things haven't happened. It kind of is what it is. ERS, what does it take to prize Zion from New Orleans, and would you take him? I would take Zion. I would take on the risk.
Oh, my
Lord. But they do not have the assets, and beyond that,
New Orleans ain't giving that up yet.
Not yet.
I
think he's going to turn down that deal.
You know what? I've been maintaining the same opinion. I think he's going to be one of the first players to say, fuck off with that rookie extension.
And you know what he's going to do?
Go to New York.
He's going to go to New York where that CAA powerhouse is building. Leon Rhodes was a power agent at CAA.
Yep.
Zion is rep by CAA and also is obviously a Nike guy. And remind me again, where is Zion Williamson right now?
The beautiful, the lovely Portland, Oregon.
Otherwise known as the Nike campus, where he's under lock and key.
So probably staying in the goddamn Nike campus.
I would not listen. As a Beaverton High graduate, I will tell you this. If that man was walking around freely in Beaverton, Oregon, we would all know about it.
I'm telling you, like, we know he's here. Nobody's getting a photo. Nobody's snapped anything yet. And this is the generation of everybody doing that. It tells you what they're doing with him. What bothered me about him,
out of sight, out of mind.
Yes, I'm not ready to say he's this or he's that. It's been awful. He's been injured. He's had weight problems. But when
he's still been the most dominant rim gravity player since Shaquille O'Neal.
I mean, he was 27-10 last year when he played in the 25 games. Whatever.
With everybody knowing that he doesn't want to shoot,
can't shoot,
and he's just gonna dunk.
Yep.
And he was still the most efficient player in the NBA.
Well, it's because like Reggie White dribbling the basketball. How do you stop a guy that massive? What bothered me the most though was that Knick game where he got done playing in the Garden and he's sitting there in the postgame smiling about how it's his favorite place to play. And I'm like, bro,
saying the quiet part out loud. I'm gonna need you to calm down.
You're making this way too obvious right now. What are you doing?
Yeah, on that part of it, this is what I've hated about becoming quote unquote media over the last decade, is seeing the underbelly of this stuff, the agents, the shoe deals, the maneuvering.
It can be slimy.
Yeah, it's not great. That's honestly been one of the few nice things about the Lillard era is that stuff really hasn't been that prevalent. I mean,
yeah, the national media tries to make it that way, but locally we know like Dame is just it's nice. It's
he's
relaxing.
gotten some guys paid.
Yeah,
but I'm not against that. Like I'm always team secure the bag. Bando says, I just hope Joe Cronin pulls the trigger and finally takes a true risk. Hope Cronin is not Olshey 2.0. He's already not. He's already put his fingerprints on the organization. He's fired a head trainer. He's fired the PR director of 24 years. He has fired an assistant GM, and he has hired or replaced or elevated other people in those roles. He's also hired a new assistant GM.
Yeah, I mean, but I'll push back on you. I'm kind of with him. Who asked that question again? Sorry.
Bando.
I'm kind of with Bando. Like, I need to see a trade like that. The measurement of are you Neil or not Neil? I hear what you're saying. It sucked to see JT go. He's made some moves behind the scenes. We're talking about trades here. I know that's what Bando means. Like, you can't be sitting on these assets. We need to see him make these moves before we can finally say, not Neil. We need to separate that.
And that's the thing is, like, I'm more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in this situation simply because Neil never made that move. So I'm saying if all of a sudden Cronin makes one, he has made one move more than Neil Olshey made that was no bullshit impactful. Just a absolute, that's a good deal. That's kind of what we're seeing. So we have less than 2 weeks. I know you got to get out of here in just a second, Brandon, so we'll get to this. Reaction to All-Star selection, Andrew Wiggins, All-Star starter. Do you want to burn fan voting? Because not a single Suns starter, or not a single Suns player is an All-Star starter.
Be better. Be better than Andrew Wiggins. Name me a player better than Andrew Wiggins.
Chris Paul.
Your microphone's cutting out. What's going on?
Devin Booker.
What's happening? I can't hear.
Probably take DeAndre Ayton over him.
My headphones are working. Hey, look. Should he have started?
Hell no.
No. But all of this shit is made up. It doesn't matter. We're all going to die in 80 years. I'm happy for Andrew Wiggins. He was the butt of how many jokes in his career? He was traded as the number one pick.
Remind me again, what organization traded him?
Cleveland.
Where's the All-Star game this year?
Cleveland. It's going to taste delicious.
Spicy.
Who's going to win the MVP of that game?
Do you think LeBron picks him?
No, LeBron traded his ass. He wrote an exclusive for a magazine and purposely left him out before the trade had even been talked or announced.
How do you hate someone that's never been in the league yet? That's cold as hell.
Well, LeBron saw it, was like, I'm not winning with that guy. I'd rather win with Kevin Love. I know what Kevin Love is. I don't know what this guy is.
You know what's going to happen is LeBron's going to get there for selection and look at Andrew Wiggins and just see Kevin Love and just say Kevin Love out loud.
What's the feeling for Wiggins if LeBron picks you?
What is he after? Like what's he doing? He just has to be looking at it and going, I don't trust you. I don't trust you.
Look, it's been kind of I think the All-Star starters are basically what you expect minus a couple guys, right? But like you add a DeRozan, you add a Wiggins, it's fun. I get it. This is it's career legacy stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many All-Stars Gary Payton started versus was a bench player, but, he made All-Star team. Like,
yeah. No, I mean, making an All-Star team is making an All-Star team, whether you start or come off the bench. I will say I wanted to punch whoever voted Trae Young and to be a starter over Zach LaVine, who's an MVP candidate right now.
Oh, Zach LaVine's been awesome. Why would you want to punch somebody over that?
Because it's very dumb. I hate stupid things.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I hate stupid things.
He's been good, though. I mean, you can't.
Sure.
Individually, he's been good. His team hasn't been good.
It's just, it's very weird. I hate it.
So you're one of those nerds, huh? Because I used to be this too. This kind of stuff, the starters.
It bothers you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
That's fine. I like it.
I want to get you out of here on this. I will pull up my screen capture right now to show everybody. All right. Boop. Why isn't it showing? Why aren't you showing? Come here. Screen capture. Capture window. Well, this is dumb. I don't know why it's not grabbing it. All right, screw it. We'll do it like this. We'll capture the window, and then we'll shrink it down. Because this is great to do live. All right. So, I teased this a little bit. These are the top lineups currently in the NBA, Brandon, as far as net rating are concerned.
Is this minimum 2 games?
Not this time. This is cleaning the glass, baby. We're not cheating anything here.
Okay.
All right. So,
All right.
this is the top, like 15, 16 lineups, I think is where it's at. Milwaukee has the best net rating between George Hill, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Bobby Portis. They are a plus 35 and 101 possessions. Zoinks! However, there is a lineup here at 9th of Anfernee Simons, Ben McLemore, Nassir Little, Robert Covington, Yusuf Nurkic with nearly 150 possessions. That is a plus 27.7. Holy crap.
Let's go.
That is a bonkers lineup. And what's interesting about this is, yes, they have a 127 offensive rating. Really good. You mean like just dumb good. You'll love to see it. But, and this is the important part. Let me go ahead and open this up and put this on the screen so everybody can kind of see it here. Let me see. There we go. The points per possession defensively. Let's scroll over here. Oh, weird. They're in the 99th percentile. In fact, they have the second best defensive rating of any lineup in the top 100 at 87.1, trailing only the Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen lineup.
I don't know if I would pick them as the second best defensive team in the NBA if I needed a group on the floor, but that is a hell of a stat for that lineup to be that good offensively and to be that good defensively. That is unbelievable.
Bonkers.
It's almost like, stay with me here. Size, giving a shit, and athleticism are great things to have on the floor at one time. It's almost like that's a thing.
It's a lot.
You mean, wait. What's the defense and offensive measurements with 2'6" guys on the floor?
Not great, Bob.
Oh, okay. All right. Great.
Not great, Bob.
Good to know.
So yeah, they have been very, very good together.
And it's translated, right? Like sometimes you can see a stat and go, what? But like when you tell me that, I don't know if I would have picked them to be as high as they are. That makes sense because when I watched them play, you were like, this group plays pretty well together. Mm-hmm. They move the ball. They communicate very well. They're putting forth great effort on the defensive end. Like it translates. It's nice to see it translate.
Again, these aren't giant sample sizes. And the one that I showed there, I'm sorry, that was the Ant, CJ, Nas, Cov, Nurk lineup that was there defensively. The other lineup, let me sort it here real quick. Net diff. The other lineup, I'm sorry, is at 98.3. So also in the top echelon of overall net rating. It's kind of cool to see, up there with Milwaukee, Golden State, Phoenix, Brooklyn, Miami. That's a comforting feeling. Like some of the stuff that we saw, like they were legitimately good. The problem is the second those guys left, off a proverbial cliff. I'm sorry, not a clip. But yeah, so there's your positive. Yes, the 99th percentile group had Ant, CJ. Yes. The 82nd percentile group was Ant, Ben McLemore.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it just kind of goes to show what they've had.
What, Danny? Goes to show what?
Let's see. Weird. Having length and athleticism matters.
No, you're crazy.
This is not the team is better off without Dame. This is getting bigger makes sense.
And obviously it helps.
Yeah. So
goes without saying, man, we're not crazy. We haven't been crazy for years, and it's nice to see numbers back us up.
Yes. The tape matches the data.
Yes.
So, John asked, what was the group? I'll give you guys the two groups here. So, the four are Ant, Nas, Cove, and Nurk. And then you can swap out whether it's McLemore or McCullum. McCullum had obviously had some games against some subpar opponents in there that may have impacted some of that as well. It's been fun. Fun.
The Toronto game, by the way, not to interrupt you, but that Toronto game probably helped a lot with some of those numbers.
Yes. Also, the Orlando game on the trip.
Orlando, that's
where
right.
The defense was. I mean, that's the thing is like they've kept scoring down. That's part of like feeding use of Nurkic the ball, slowing them down, but also attacking in transition. And Ant has been stupidly efficient. Haas says, you mean defense requires a longer player? Even if it doesn't, it complements. Like it makes up for so much shit. That is why I have just said for so long, just get bigger, stronger, longer, more athletic. And it's also a big reason why, like, I just look at it and go, like, Nurk's good, but if you put Miles Turner in that role, a guy who can cover even more ground, who's even longer and more athletic, it's like you can start seeing how things could get a little bit better. Am I saying they're a championship contender? No. Are you saying they're a championship contender? No. But are they better? They're more watchable? Hell yes. So
I mean, but if I would have told you, and seriously, like, we knew these players were good, but what is the one thing we hold on to here in Portland? It's if you would have given that Dame, LA, Nick West, and Rolo lineup a bench, who knows how far they could have gone?
That's a finals contending team.
Right, but we believed in that team, right? And they kind of proved it, and they just lacked the depth. How many people around the country covering this league and watching this league would have said Dame Lillard, young Dame Lillard, LaMarcus, Wes Matthews, Nick Batum, and Robin Lopez? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have picked that. So It's like, that's what I said a few weeks ago. Be Utah. Just try to be Utah. Be a really good team.
Be really good. Have like 9-10 deep. We're like, Jesus Christ, this doesn't let up. Like,
and you fly under the radar, man. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to pick you. Everybody picks against you. And if you have that depth established, you can do some stuff.
Literally Phoenix Suns last year. Literally the Phoenix Suns last year.
Yes.
So, John says, did y'all hear Windhorst compare Ant to Monte Ellis? Yeah, Windhorst,
we did.
Windhorst knows how I feel about that. So, the message has been passed along. But I also don't think he did clarify during the show. He's like, I don't think he's Monte Ellis. He was saying, I don't think he impacts winning the same way Damian Lillard does yet.
We don't know that, and I think that's the one thing I would say is fair.
And I guess we'll answer this one last. Does Little's injury lower his value? No. And not only that, I have been told that the pecking order of off limits is Dame is entirely off limits, Ant is as close as it gets, and Nas is right there. Those are the three. Those are the three guys that matter for this franchise right now.
Yeah.
And they care about those other guys as human beings, but as far as basketball planning-wise, those are the three. So Brandon's got to get out of here and go coach, so we will wrap it up here. Thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. We love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the channel. If you're here hanging out, please click the subscribe button. Bloop. It's free, quite literally. You don't have to turn on the notifications, all that kind of stuff. Just grow some things up. That helps us improve the algorithm and helps us get out to more people. We are growing, whether you want us to or not.
It's the only area in my life that I actually grow. So
yeah, there you go.
Nice.
But again, thank you. If you can, leave us a review on iTunes, on Apple.
Please do
that.
Whatever.
That's another thing that helps us.
It helps us a lot.
Share the podcast. Word of mouth is how podcasts get out. Algorithms is how YouTube content spreads.
Yeah.
So if you can help us with that, that'd be great. Otherwise, we will catch you tomorrow for the Houston game.
Houston Rockets.
I might be a little bit late. We may or may not have a pregame. I'm still trying to figure that out. I've got to go get a bunch of tests done for my surgery. That is going to put me right up against the start time. So I will let you guys know. I will talk to Brandon and make sure you guys are kind of in the loop. There is a watch party, so that will be there regardless, and I'll post the link up as soon as I know. But until then, take care. Talk soon. You can find us on social media at Jack Ramsays, at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, jackramsays@gmail.com. Take care. Talk soon.